So this massive bomb hit a Gaza hospital on Tuesday, and it filled with, of course, wounded people sheltering folks that actually needed medical care at this hospital. And wounded and killed, they say about 500 people were killed in this bombing. The Hamas-run health ministry is the one who said this, gave out this number. Here's some of the details from New York Times. The blast at Al-Arabi hospital, where many civilians were sheltering after Israel's bombardment of Gaza, left bloodied and charred bodies strewn across the courtyard. Palestinian officials blamed an Israeli airstrike, an assertion that was forcefully disputed by the Israel Defense Forces, which blamed an errant rocket fired by an armed Palestinian faction instead. Neither side's account could be independently verified, and the cause of the blast and its death toll remained unclear. And again, it goes back to who you're listening to, who's in some moments propaganda are telling you what's happening versus someone else's. So the independently verified part, I guess it depends on who you trust for their independent verification. Here's an image of what is that went down with the destruction within just, I think, that parking lot area. And again, the destruction that went down of the human toll. Here's another one. I assume was in the corridors of this area as well. Pure hell. So again, I've said this before. If you're a kid and you are living in this is your entire reality and experience in this world. What is it to make someone not believe I must be in hell? This is the literal limits of my life. Am I gonna die today? Am I gonna be blown up? Because I've seen family happen to them consistently. This is the now world that we're living in, and the acceptance is the thing that bugs me the most. A little bit more, because this bloodshed unfolded as the United States is trying to convince Israel to allow the delivery of supplies to desperate civilians and groups and hospitals in the Gaza Strip. And we know Blinken went and visited with the prime minister yesterday in Israel, and also Joe Biden made the trip as well. We're gonna get to details of what happened with that. Because again, from the Associated Press, ambulances and private cars rushed some 350 casualties from the Al-Ahli blast to Gaza City's main hospital, Al-Shifa, which was already overwhelmed with wounded from other strikes. And its director, Mohammed Abu Salmiya, said this. The wounded were laid onto bloody floors, screaming in pain. We need equipment, we need medicine, we need beds, we need anesthesia, we need everything, is what he also said, and warned that fuel for the hospital's generators would run out within hours. So, Adrienne, this discussion that everyone's been having online, on television, in person, factions of people splitting and angrily talking about which side of this that you're on. But what we're finding is which side everyone happens to be on, innocent folks continue to be massacred on wide scales. And people that are in power, who have the missiles and the bombs and the militaries and everything, talk such a big game about how they're gonna continue doing this. I don't know if it's that the exposure of the way wars always happen with taking out humans that we deem non-human isn't promoted as much or said online as much. But now, as we're seeing it being said, promoted, videoed, and spread, the shame is just not coming up from any of these leaders who have the power to do something different.
No, I agree with you. I actually think it's the gaslighting that's coming up. When we have a situation where we have these nations leaders saying that they're going to engage in certain strikes behaviors, they are insisting on people vacating areas in a small amount of time, and then all of a sudden there are explosions and bombs, and so many people are being murdered and killed. It's like it's offensive to then have the government say, "Oh, well, we didn't do that," and also too, it seems so incredibly implausible, and it also reminds me a lot of some of the wars of the past that the United States initiated, like in Afghanistan, where we were hitting medical facilities, and right. That we're not above that, and neither are the people that we support. So why am I going to go ahead and say, okay, we didn't do it, or that particular government didn't do it? It must have been someone else. It just seems completely and totally implausible. And it's revolting, and it's really disgusting. Just the lies to people's faces.
I think we know the power of one world leader who is engaged in something like this, then getting the confirmation of someone like United States officials, representatives, all the way up to the president, that are showing up, that they can then put pictures up and say the things we're doing are endorsed by this country. And that's what Netanyahu's been doing. I mean, the Twitter account there for the prime minister is consistent with the amount of connections and meetings he's having and in-depth discussions about what we're doing next. This isn't just an Israel thing, and he's making sure that people know that, because again, that's more power for the things that they're doing. More on this blame, because details come out that are allowing people to find themselves on one side or another on this. Again, as hundreds of people have been killed, many children who we've seen videos again of the day before when they were hanging out at that same hospital, some wounded, and then who knows how many of them in those same images are no longer with us. Here's more details from the Associated Press. Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu told President Biden that Hamas, quote, is responsible and should be held accountable for all civilian casualties, including the explosion at the Gaza hospital. More from him. Every day they perpetuate a double war crime, targeting our civilians while hiding behind their civilians. Referring to the hospital, he said, the entire world was rightfully outraged, but this outrage should be directed not at Israel, but at the terrorists. More, Islamic Jihad dismissed those claims, accusing Israel of trying too hard to evade responsibility for the brutal massacre it committed. The group pointed to Israel's order that Al-Ahli be evacuated and its previous bombing of the hospital complex as proof that the hospital was an Israeli target. It also said the scale of the explosion, the angle of the bomb fall, and the extent of the destruction all pointed to Israel, which I've seen other people talk about. And again, I'm the military expert. I didn't see the angle of the bomb. The level of destruction is something that many people have been saying quite directly. And we've seen stories change a lot of times when one group says they didn't do something, and then later, once the evidence is all piled up, you kind of have to go, okay, yeah, but it was an accident. We didn't really mean to do it that way. We just meant to kill certain other folks. And as from some of those things Netanyahu was saying with members of Hamas, burrowing amongst citizens, that's maybe a tactic, but is that absolute declaration that you then have to fulfill that military tactic or that guerrilla warfare tactic, whatever it is that they're doing? Do you have to respond the way that they assume you'll respond? Seems like they're controlling you or something.
Check out the Damage Report podcast each day, wherever you get your podcasts, whether Pocket Casts or Stitcher or iTunes. You can join me as I give you the news and stories you want, with a range of co-hosts and interview guests jumping in on the fun each day. Again, that's the Damage Report, wherever you get your podcasts. And if you get them at iTunes, don't forget to rate and review. Sometimes I'll read them live on the show.